Hey guys, welcome to another tutorial. This one is about drag and drop in scene2d, and I've prepared a little test to show you what it's going to look like. Right here, if this compiles today. So we're going to have our inventory on the left side and the merchant's inventory on the right side. At the beginning, all the stuff is in our inventory and we want to sell stuff to the merchant. So we just grab the thing we want and, move it over there. Just like this. Except that the cucumber, doesn't work. We can't sell the cucumber to the merchant because the merchant doesn't like cucumbers. That's the reason. The rest we can sell. And yeah, so let's write this. What we have at the moment is nothing but the drag and drop tutorial right here. We have the inventory and we have the merchant's inventory, but we cannot drag and drop stuff at all. So, that's the part that we are trying to explain in this video. Alright, so this is the class that you just saw, the one where we can't drag and drop stuff. This is really just basic stuff. Dispose the stage, render the stage, resize the viewport, set the stage as input processor, and get a skin, enable some debug lines because it looks better, and create these two inventories of the merchant and ours, and then put all that stuff into a table. So let's put some drag and drop into this. Now, how do we drag and drop things in scene2d? Well, there is a specific extra class for this called drag and drop. Who would have thought that? Drag and drop. It's just called as D&D equals new drag and drop. Now, this drag and drop is not a widget, it's not an actor, we don't add it to the stage, it's not even a listener. It doesn't extend anything. It just has these add source and add target methods here and here. And they actually add listeners and, listen to dragging and clicking and dropping and all that stuff and do things that we specify using these source and target classes. So we can have a look in here, but we don't really have to. But you see it creates a drag listener, and inside the drag start, drag and drag stop method, it does all this stuff to actually, move the thing that we want to move around over the screen, and then it customizes it a little bit and adds it to the stage. So the same should happen in add target. Oh, add target is actually pretty well. That's pretty cool. That's pretty easy. But yeah, anyway, what we are interested in are mostly the source and target classes. So let's have a look at the source class, for example. They're actually really simple. Let's just expand all this stuff. We have one actor in the source class. That is final, by the way. We can change it. And this actor is the actual source. So in our case, this actor that we pass into the constructor here is our own inventory. So that list right here, list inventory. Then we just override the drag start method and optionally the drag stop method and return a configured payload in this drag start method. What a payload is also, I'm going to explain that. It's down here. In the target, it's pretty similar. Again, we have one actor that actually is the target. In this case, that would be the merchant's inventory, here called sell. I don't know why. I could also call it merchant, but it's called sell. I don't know. And we override the drag method and the drop method. Optionally, we can also override the reset method, but we don't need to in our case. So, the payload class. Payload is what we return here in drag start, and payload configures, the actor that's going to be displayed while we're actually dragging the thing, some object that is the actual object that we want to drag over, and another actor that is displayed when we hover over a valid target and for when we hover over an invalid target. Alright, so that was just a quick, overview over all this stuff. Let's actually hop into it and use it. So like I said, we want to add a source to this drag and drop. So drag and drop dot add source, new source, and configure all this stuff. So at first, let's pass the correct actor into the constructor. Like I said, this is the inventory because we want to drag from our inventory to the merchant's inventory. And by the way, we cannot drag from the merchant's inventory back to our inventory. In this example, we only sell, we cannot buy back. Of course, we could also add a source for the merchant's inventory, but I just don't do that in this tutorial because, why? Just double the work. So let's have our own payload. So we don't have to create one every time drag start is called. We already have an instance here that we return. Now we just need to configure this payload according to what we want to display, what we actually want to move, and so on. So payload dot set. Now let's see what we cannot set. Set an object, drag actor, invalid drag actor, and valid drag actor. So what do we actually want to move from our inventory to the merchant's inventory? Well, probably the item that we actually drag. So let's say set object and get the currently selected object from our inventory. Before the drag starts, we first click, because every drag starts with a click, obviously, and that click selects the object in the list, so we can then just take the selected object and move it over. So inventory.get selected, and that's it. Get selected in this case returns a string because this is a list of strings. You could also make it a list of item or your own custom class of whatever. It's just going to use the toString method of that these items that we pass in here. I could also say a new object here, just anything. It takes anything. Well, except in this case because it's an inventory of strings. If I remove this, then it works again. Object like this. But yeah, we don't want to do that. So we get the currently selected string that represents an item out of the inventory and put it into the payload. Now that we put it into the payload, let's also take it out of our inventory because we can't have it in our hand and the inventory at the same time. That's just my personal preference because that kind of makes sense. So payload, not payload. So inventory dot get items dot remove index inventory get selected index. Now, that is pretty much self-explanatory. The get selected index is just the index of the selected item in the inventory, and that is removed from the items of the inventory. So yeah, makes sense. But don't do it like this because then something else is going to be selected. We first have to take it out of the inventory and then remove it from the inventory's items. Let's continue configuring the payload. Let's say what we actually want to display. Like right now, we can drag and drop the thing over, but it's not going to show anything that's following the mouse while we drag it. So let's say payload.set drag actor, and let's give this a new label. And let's actually say item, string item, and then we pass the item in here. So we create a new label with the item as text and put that into the payload. It's really as simple as that. That's really all we have to do. And the payload is configured for now. We are just making some basics here, but that's enough. One thing though, now imagine we drag, we select an item. Actually, let me just show you. Now what happens in this case? Now we can select it, once we start dragging, we have this. We already have this step right here. This already works. But what happens if we want to drag it, for example, up here on the inventory? Of course, that doesn't work because, you know, we can't drag it somewhere where we didn't actually specify a target. This is just a title. It's not somewhere where we can drag this thing. So if we put this on here, it is supposed to go back into our own inventory that it's already been taken out of, you know. Also, if I put it on here, it's supposed to go back. If I put it anywhere except the merchant's inventory, it's supposed to go back into our own inventory, actually. So how do we do this? Because right now, we took it out of the inventory, you know, here we took it out, but we never put it back in. Well, for that, we can override drag stop and check if it was dragged on a valid target. Now, if you read the documentation, where do you want to find usages? I don't want to find usages. I want to see the superclass. All right. We can read the documentation and we'll see that target, the one right here, is null if it's, the payload has not been dropped on a valid target. So if it's been dropped somewhere where we can't actually drop it, then it's going to be null. So we can check if the target is null, and in that case we want to add it back to an inventory. So inventory dot get items dot add payload dot get object, and since this returns an object, we just need to cast it to a string. And there we go, it's back in our inventory. Let's just try this. And not the pre-made one, but the one that we actually have right here, to see, you know, what this looks like, even though you can probably imagine. So this is what we have. We can take the thing, now it's selected, now the drag start starts, and we're actually moving it around. And we cannot yet move it here, because we didn't specify a target, we didn't add a target to the drag and drop. But as we drag it anywhere, doesn't matter where at all, because we have no target, so there is no valid target, it's going to be moved back into our own inventory because of the drag stop method that receives null as target. Now let's also specify a target where we can actually drop this thing, because otherwise this is pretty pointless. So drag and drop dot add target, create a new target, and this target takes in its constructor you know, the thing that we want to drag it on, which in this case is cell, the list up here, the merchant's inventory. And now we need to override at least these two methods. Now what do these do? The drag method is called as long as we hover over the merchant's inventory. So this is called every time the mouse is moved, or, you know, the finger moves by 1 pixel or whatever. And we want to check if we can drop this thing on there. Now, in general, we can accept anything, basically. There is not really a problem. But for the case of, you know, this tutorial and for having an example, we wanted to say the merchant doesn't want to buy our cucumber because, I don't know, he doesn't like cucumbers. I actually do like cucumbers, but he doesn't. So if cucumber equals payload.getObject, then we don't want to. So we have to return if the merchant accepts this. So he accepts it only if cucumber doesn't equal the object that is dragged on here. Now we could of course also do this differently, payload.getObject and then dot equals cucumber, but, you know, just in case payload.getObject is null, I do it the other way around, even though I know in this case it's never gonna be null because, you know, I always set it like this. Okay, then in drop we want to actually add the thing in the payload to the merchant's inventory, and then we're almost done with this tutorial already. So let's say you know, the cell, which is the merchant's inventory, get items dot add payload dot get object, and we need to cast this to a string again. And you know, actually, I think that's it. That's actually all. I mean, I can't imagine that's all that we had to do. Let me check. Damn, that's really all we had to do. Yeah, we are done. So let's run this. Drag and drop tutorial. And now we can select the thing, start dragging it, you know, follows our mouse. If we drag it anywhere, it goes back into our own inventory. But if we take the flux capacitor and move it over to the merchant, it's in the merchant's inventory. Yeah. So yeah, this works. Like I said, we cannot take things from the merchant's inventory and move it back to ours, because, I don't know, this guy doesn't sell back to us. We could, if we added another source, like this, just for the, you know, just like this, for the merchant's inventory. But since we don't do this, we cannot drag things back. Now, we can configure this a little more, right? We could say, since we cannot sell the cucumber and he just refuses it, let's indicate so while actually hovering this. Because now, as you know, while we're hovering, the target's drag method is being called all the time, and we return false because cucumber equals the payload's object. Now, we could configure the payload a little bit more and say, as we can see in here, we set the valid drag actor and the invalid drag actor. So let's just say set the invalid drag actor. Payload dot set invalid drag actor to a new label item skin. Now, of course, this is exactly the same. So I don't know if the labels label bitmaps fonts font markup thing is enabled. So we may find out. We could try to make it red, but you know, in case it's not enabled, let's just say item plus no thanks. That's what the merchant says then. So the merchant says no thanks. That's going to be written after the just, you know, after the item's name. And yeah, that's it already. So let's run this again. Drag and drop tutorial. Now if you move anything over here, the merchant doesn't say anything, he just buys it. But if you take the cucumber, and as soon as we move it over here, he says no thanks. Rip, 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 rip. And still doesn't accept it. So we could also set a valid drag actor. Let's just give this another message. I'll buy this. And you know, there we go. I'll buy this. And he buys it. Simple as that. Also what we can do, I mean, now we just can go through all these things that are there and configure it a little bit. We have the ability to set the time that we need to drag at least. I mean, you know, that's really just details. But for example, we can change the button. Right now it's buttons.left by default, but we can say buttons.right. Like this, we can only drag with the right mouse button. Like this, with -1, we can drag with any mouse button at all. So the left, the right, and the middle. But you know, that just kind of is just kind of dumb. What else can we do? We can set the drag actor position. That may be interesting, because you saw there was a little distance between the mouse and the actual actor. Let's just try passing in something in here like -50, -50, and see what happens. And yeah, we definitely see it is offset, but that doesn't look very good. Alright, that's all about the basics of the drag and drop. I don't know, there's not much more left to tell you about this. It's really a simple, kind of thing. But yeah, thanks for watching. Alright, this was my first tutorial in 7 months. I'm really sorry for the lack of videos in the meantime. I wanted to make videos, but I couldn't because I was busy, and I still am busy, which is why I don't know when the next video is going to come out. But I already have one planned here, this already all recorded, but it's not yet done. So I'm currently having vacancies, holidays, to study, because in like 3 weeks I'm writing final exams to get off high school. So I hope that's going fine. But other than that, I also accepted 2 jobs. One where I'm writing games, and another one where I'm writing games, but for a charitable cause. I'm talking about Charity Games Lab, and I have to explain all of that to you, but the basic idea is we make games, put them on app stores on iOS and Android, like any other games we have, advertisement in them, and 70% of the income generated by these advertisements go to charity organizations like Save the Children, for example, our current partner. So 70% of the money that we make go to children in need, and just 30% go back to us to make more games. So since we are still in startup phase, we have set up this crowdfunding campaign here, and it would really be nice, really help not just us, but also all these children that are going to get money, and yeah, in the end also us. If you shared this like with your friends on, I don't know, just tweet about it or something, always people say every little bit helps, and that's like the standard phrase you hear when it's about sharing something. But really, if you're in the situation and you want your project shared, then really everything helps. So thanks a lot for your support. You have no idea how much you influence not just this company, but also my life, because without you and without all these viewers, my YouTube channel wouldn't have grown that much, and I would not have gotten the attention that I did, by which I got these 2 jobs. So really, thanks a lot for this. You're awesome, and I'm going to see you in the next video that I am going to make.